pass. Crossed into the penalty area towards Zidane.
Nani.
Rooney! Oh, wonderful! Manchester City are still alive here. Balotelli, Aguero!
I was enjoying my music so much I forgot to put us all into the stream, and then started talking and realised that none of us were on camera. It was a blank screen. Welcome to Football Throwdown, episode 8. We finished the season. Thank God we have finished this season. Albert J. TV is in the house. How are you, Albert? You good?
Savva, even though you support the rival club, mate, it's always good to see you, man. And you know that I mean it. I don't say it for no reason, but good to be back, man. And yeah, listen, man. I said for a few weeks now I needed to recharge the batteries, man, and I think I do, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Listen, I think everyone's feeling that. Someone who's not feeling that, someone who wished the season would have gone on and on and on, is Dave. Nottingham Forest. You know, at the end there, found a little bit of form. Awinyi, however we pronounce his name, decided that he was going to turn into Harry Kane for the last month of the season.
Scored again.
And he kept scoring goals, didn't he? And you must be really happy with how the season finished, Dave.
Yeah. It's been a learning curve, a steep learning curve, and it's been very difficult at times. There have been some, quite painful away days. But our boys, bless them, and our manager and our ownership and our club and our fans and our city have stuck together, and we got our reward. I only ever wanted 17th because I thought that was the most realistic thing to aim for. So we got 16th, and we had the joy of a pressure-free day at Crystal Palace on Sunday, which was, I can assure you, a lot of fun.
Yeah, well, you know that they're as D Palace will tell you what a relevant football club Crystal Palace are. He came on the other day. He came on the other day trying to give it to me about Spurs not winning trophies, so I had to pull up Wikipedia and show him that in the honours it shows Crystal Palace have won a Zenith Data trophy. Do you remember those, Dave?
I watched that game actually. I watched it. I remember.
Right. And I've got him digging me out about not winning trophies. I mean, listen, I can take it from Arsenal fans, even your lot that have won Champions Leagues, Dave, but I can't take it from Crystal Palace. Can't be having that. Guys, look, the season is over. The season is over. Welcome to anyone who's in the chat. What I will say is, if anyone wants to like the stream, please do. It's free. You just press a button. If anyone's got any questions for the panel about their own club, about anything to do with the Premier League, anything to do with the Championship playoffs, I don't care, anything to do with world football, let us know. Put a question in the chat. Put a Q in front of it so I know you're asking a question and not telling me something. And also, if you want to give a super chat, 50% of the money does go to the British Heart Foundation. And just so you know, on Friday, I am a glutton for punishment, going to do my third 24-hour live stream for charity. And we're looking to raise 4K for the British Heart Foundation. And I'm sure some of you have seen a few things that have happened in the Spurs community tonight. Don't worry. All of my donations go straight to the Just Giving page. Albert and Dave, I'll tell you off stream what that is about. And guys, look, the season is finished. I think it felt like a very long season because of the World Cup in the middle. Did it feel that way for you guys? I mean, obviously you were going for a title, Albert, Dave, you guys were in a relegation battle. But aside from that, has this year felt different for football in general? Like with the number of sackings, I think there was like 14 of the 20 managers that started the season didn't finish it. Has it felt a bit weird, Dave? How do you feel about it?
Well, it's clearly a unique season because never, in football history, never in history of the universe, has a World Cup been held mid-season. So everything was going to feel, compressed, or all the best, Derby. Everything was going to feel compressed and sort of strange. There were going to be these stop-start feelings of it. As regards how long it feels, Sam, it didn't feel long while it was going on because you were on the treadmill, and we like you boys with Tottenham and Arsenal, you were being dragged from situation to situation. You're just going to go with the flow. It was only when I walked away from Selhurst Park, having completed the season on Sunday, that I thought, my God, that really was long. It was a kind of a hindsight view. And I think, it was always, the thing is, we say every year, it's going to be a bonkers season. And then it ends up generally being, exceeding levels of bonkersness, with all the managerial sackings and all that kind of thing. But I just think this will go down as a season, unless a situation comes along, maybe after our lifetimes or whatever, where they do it again. But it will go down as a season. That was the season that was, with the World Cup being sort of slap bang in the middle of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, listen, for me, it just felt like forever. We've had about 19 managers this year. We didn't win an away game for like forever. Albert, I'm guessing for you it must be bittersweet because for 35 games, 34 games, you're in a title race. It must be exciting. Did the moment that City finally won it, did that kill everything for you? Was it like popping a balloon and it kind of just went, oh, get to the end of the season now?
I think the balloon popped for me and quite a few Arsenal fans after our performance at the Etihad. I said it, our worst performance of the season in the biggest game of the season.
Yeah.
And it sucked. So I think even before that game, to be fair, mate, it was I think most Arsenal fans saying like the title was sort of done. And I Savva, me and many Arsenal fans are asked the question, can Arsenal win the league? Yes, they can, but I will answer the question after we play City. And I'll give a definitive answer. And I said we won't. And that's the way it was. So yeah, the bubble was burst for quite a while, to be honest with you. I think the thing that really annoyed a lot of Arsenal fans is you can lose a league to City. It's not an issue. Got quality players. 5 leagues out of 6 now. But to capitulate the way they did for the run-in, and to not even make them win the title by kicking a ball. I think that really raggled with a lot of Arsenal fans. I remember seeing that the celebrations, when they're sitting, watching the game, and then you see the montage, Rodri and the Diaz and rally. To be honest, as a fan, it's a good watch. To be fair, I wasn't feeling that at the time, but it's a good watch. But that for me was a bit annoying, the way they kind of bombed out in the season. But sort of context to it, is an impressive season, but it wasn't a successful season. And that's two very big different opinions.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, guys, when you look at it at the moment, I feel like, I don't know about you guys. I don't know. Maybe it's because, Albert, you run a YouTube channel. So, and Dave, you're on quite a lot of shows. I don't know if you see this, but I'm seeing more transfer activity already, more rumours, more messages from Romano than ever about this player's going there. It feels like a lot of clubs have had a lot planned, ready to go. Do you think that's because the season's gone on longer than it normally does because of the World Cup and people are trying to play catch up? Or are we just in this crazy world now where everyone thinks that they can win something and is buying loads and loads of players?
Go on, Dave.
I think the fact is, lads, that because the season has kind of ended later than it would normally do, it's almost like the end of the season has blended into the transfer silly season, right? And what you say, Savva, is absolutely right. It seems that, rumours are abounding, sort of prognostications about what clubs are going to do. It seems to be on the rise. They're already talking about like the likes of Casado and Alexis leaving Brighton and Harry Kane, where he might go and all that. What I'm happy to say, after last summer, when a certain club rather dominated the conversation more than it ought to have done, is that club is keeping its head just below the waterline at the moment, and it's not going to say anything. Somebody said to me, I saw my mate where I live, he's a postman and a Villa fan, and he said, what do you reckon about Forest in the close season? I said, I don't know, 80 or 90 this time, I think, to be honest, mate. And he didn't realise I was taking the piddle, But with us, it seems like everybody else is getting ready for this frenzied kind of transfer window.
It feels like that.
The beauty for Forest is we had our chaos last year, And as I said on,
hang on, Dave. Are you telling me because you signed, because you signed 473 players last summer that we're going to see no players going out and no players coming in at Forest this summer?
No. What I'm saying to you, Sav, and what I'm saying to Albert is as well that it'll be more reticent this year. It'll be more. There won't be kind of like just chucking bodies at it. Literally, the phrase I used, and it might have been on the show or another show, is we chucked 30 darts at a board over the course of 2 windows. It won't be like that because I sincerely believe that we have a nice nucleus of a side, a skeleton of a side that we can build on. And it, in our case, I'd like it to be sort of like, 3, 4, 5 at most.
Yeah.
Quality. Prune away the deadwood.
Sorry, is that 345? Are you adding those numbers in a row, or are you? But
either 3 or 4 or 5, Sam.
What I'd like to know, don't worry, Spurs will sign 7. Every summer is 7. No plan, no reason. There's no consistency, just 7 players. Cue Spurs fans going, oh my God, we've won the transfer window. Cue 3 months later when we're not winning the league, they're going, we had such a poor transfer window. Eat, sleep, repeat. Anyway, we'll get into Spurs later. There's been a few questions already that I want to go to. Remember, people in the chat, please put Q and ask a question. If not, put a super chat in. But please smash the like button. It's free. Only 31 of you have out of 87. That is disgraceful. And I think 31 is the points that Leeds went down on. Don't know where that link came from. I just thought I'd say it. If we look at some of the questions, there's been a few about Forest, but I'll come to that in a second. So there's one about Arsenal here. Does the Arsenal fan, Albert's got no name, just the Arsenal fan, we'll call him that. Does the Arsenal fan trust the likes of Edu and KSE, who is what?
Concrete Sports Entertainment, yeah.
There we go, thank you. To get the right players in to be up there again next season?
Trust is a very, very big word when it comes to KFC, man, to be honest. It's a great question. I'll try. You know what it is? I think this season is going to be the key. A lot of Arsenal fans have said for a number of years, "Oh, the summer window is a big window." No, it isn't. This one's a big one, and now they've backed him anyway. Edu takes a lot of stick. Obviously, because he doesn't come from a background where he was an expert in being a technical director. But as far as I was aware, he was a coordinator for the Brazil national side. That's not the same kind of role, to be honest with you. So yeah, he does take a lot of stick. But I think Arsenal's biggest issue is that we don't get our number one targets. That's been a concern for quite a long time, actually. And if that happens again, a lot of questions have to be asked. But we're back in the Champions League, and that was the one thing KSC kept saying about, what's the saying? They used to say Champions League wages, whatever, in Europa League budget, whatever they say, something like that. But that's not the case now. They can't hide behind that. They know what it takes to win a league title in excess of 90 points. Let's have it right. I know City end up on 89, but you know what I mean. Their point tally is insane. That's what needs to take you to win the league, but you need to have an upgrade in player recruitment in very, very key positions at Arsenal, and time will tell with that. It's not a question I can answer now, but they've got to put the money where their mouth is, basically. Yeah,
I mean, look, saying it as a Spurs fan, it's worrying for me as a Spurs fan because it looks like you will do that. The noises that are coming out, the players you're linked with. Now, there's a huge difference between being linked with a player and getting them. It's like I've been linked that I'm going out with Margot Robbie. In reality, I'm not. And by that, I'm hoping that she appears in my chats as always. I like it when Margot appears.
Savva, I believe that as well, to be honest.
I get it with Kate Beckinsale all the time. She will not leave me alone.
I know. I love Kate Beckinsale. I love Kate Beckinsale.
On the window, you know what I mean?
But the thing is, the targets so far that are being linked with you is Declan Rice, Casado, Gundogan. They're players. Cancelo. These are players that They don't just come in and make up numbers. They come in and they make you better.
Yeah.
And I think that's the key is you can go out and buy 5 or 6 squad players, sure. But when Saliba's out injured, when Jesus is out injured, who are you bringing in for them? And that's where City, for me, will always beat everyone else because they're losing Laporte and bringing in Diaz. They're losing Grealish and bringing in Foden, Haaland and Alvarez, So I'm worried. I'm worried for you. I'm worried for us about what you guys are doing. Listen, let me bring you in, Dave, with a question about just quickly a super chat actually. Redemption information. I like that. I like that name. I said, big up you free. Thank you very much. Much appreciated. And that is a pound there to the British Heart Foundation. So thank you very much. Really appreciate that. Thank you. Louis. Louis keeps talking about the Nottingham Forest owners in the chat, Dave. Seems to be really worried about them. He's asking if you are. Apparently, the Nottingham Forest owners have got a club in Greece that aren't doing well after 10 years. Is this a concern for you? Was this almost like, when you have a new manager bounce? Was this a new owner bounce and he's just whacked in loads of money and then now it might plateau off, or will he keep plugging away?
It's not a new owner bounce, really, in a way, certainly not time-wise, because he's been in the club like 3 or 4 years now, maybe a little bit more.
Has it been that long?
Yeah, it's not like he's not a brand new owner. Now, in terms of what he's put into the club, it steeply rose after the championship season. And my comparison is the team that won at Wembley last year and beat Huddersfield to get up I totted it up and it cost £6 million. And of that 11 that played at Wembley last year, in that truly awful match with that truly wonderful outcome, it was a dreadful game with a fabulous aftermath. But that team at Wembley, only 3 of them were acquired for with money. Reece Samba in goal, I think he was 750,000, something like that. Scott McKenna from Aberdeen was 3 million, and Sam Surridge from Stoke was 2 million. So the team that got us up was bargain basement. It was phenomenal, and it adds to what Steve Cooper has done, and adds another layer of well done, Steve, to that. Then he made the promise to Cooper once they got up. He made the promise in front of 25,000, 30,000 Forest fans in Market Square in Nottingham that he would provide Steve with whatever he felt he needed to keep Forest up. Now, he was saying at the time that he wanted to be competitive, and I think he's a very ambitious man, Evangelos Marinakis, very ambitious, ruthlessly so, which is kind of why we're a little bit surprised he stuck with Steve at difficult times in the season. So what he did, Sam, on the balcony of the council building last year, he said, "I'll give him what he wanted," and in hindsight, yes, he has, because we've been able to stay up. Awoniyi's done good things, Gibbs White's done good things, Danilo's done good things, Felipe, Moussa Niakate. Had Forest not had such a big injury list, then there wouldn't have been so many changes. I just feel in the last 6 weeks what's happened with Forest is there's been some final stability, a settling down, the emergence of what we think is our best 11 or 12. And what have you. So he's done that. But with Mr. Marinakis, he will want more progress. So I'm sure they're going to sit down now and work out what's needed for the new season. But he's an eccentric man. There's no doubt about that. He's we saw him drive past at Crystal Palace on Sunday, and it does look like a guy who's got some mafia connections. You wouldn't mess with him. And he's an imposing man, old Pavarotti. But he has put his money where his mouth has been.
Yes.
And I think, and what he's done as well, he's backed Steve to the hilt. Now I expect him to do the same again. So I with Olympiakos, which is the club he owns in Greece and has owned for a lot longer. I mean, they've been Champions League perennials for quite a lot of the time. I think they've just come to the end of a really good cycle, and they're in a transition, rebuilding to go again in the Greek Super League. So they're having a little bit of a downtime. They're not like massively struggling in Greece.
Which club is it?
Olympiakos.
Have they won anything in his 10-year tenure?
Yeah, they've won the Greek League umpteen times, and they've been in Champions League. They've been a lot higher up than Forest have. But really, when you have this kind of symbiotic relationship, if you like, between two clubs when they're owned by the same people, for a long time it was like Olympiacos were his priority, and we were getting Olympiacos players on loan at Forest. And what's happened is that Forest have gradually caught up, maybe just gone ahead in his priorities. So they're kind of jostling for his priorities, you know.
Well, it's the same as anything in life. Something new comes along, and you know, I've done all that, and I want to move to this. But listen, Albert, I want to bring you in on this. I saw something from DR Sports earlier today where they were actually comparing all the clubs that have let go of managers versus, you know, how well did they do since they sacked their manager? And this year, there's a lot of credit, I suppose, that the one that was stuck by was Steve Cooper.
Yeah.
You know, Bournemouth, I don't really want to bring them into it because I think they made the change with Scott Parker after about 4 games or 5 games, whatever it was. But when you look at Leeds, you know, have changed twice and got worse. Spurs have changed twice and got worse. Leicester, you know, Southampton. You know, all down there. You know, Wolves being the exception to that. Do you think a lot of credit needs to go to the Leeds owner for sticking by Steve Cooper? Because it must be tough if you've given a manager how many signings was it? 18?
It was 22 before the deadline shut in September, Sav. Yeah. And then it was another. Serge Aurier was kind of 23, but he was a free agent, so he came after the window shut. And he's been excellent, by the way. And then there were 7 more in January. So it's been this blizzard of human beings dropping out of the sky, you know. But with regard to Mr. Marinakis staying faithful and loyal to Steve, I go back to the Leicester game in October, where we were thumped 4-0 at the King Power, and we were truly dreadful. They were bottom, we were second bottom, and we swapped places that night. And coming out of the King Power, I thought, oh God, we're in for it. I could not see where a win was coming from.
Yeah.
But that night at the King Power, I remember the Forest lads coming over to our corner in the King Power, and they were very sheepish because they knew they played poorly, and they were expecting a battering, and they got some sort of sympathetic applause. When Steve Cooper came over to kind of shrug his shoulders and say, I'm sorry, I let you down, 3,000 people in the King Power, maybe 3,300, whatever, sang his name to the rafters. It was Stevie Cooper. And the Forest fans that night sent a message to the owner saying, look, you might have somebody else in mind, but we can't think of a better alternative than this guy. This guy is the best we've had for 23 years. He's put us in the Premier League, which, you know, I've been asked on shows, who would you replace Steve Cooper with? And I was just being really sarcastic by saying, let's go and get Gary Megson, David Platt, Joe Kinnear, Alex McLeish, Steve McLaren, all these crap guys who've gone before us. Gary Megson. Sav, we had 23 years of like
Dave. He's the 2-1 favourite to take over at Spurs. Is Gary Megson?
Oh my God!
Trust me, Sam. Not even Tottenham, the way they are, would ever stoop to that.
He's not.
So I think, mate, what the Forest fans have been so good at doing is seeing the bigger picture, the context of, like, if you like, 2.5 decades of Nottingham Forest and how it's gone. And Forest for so long they've been a bit of a standing joke, although we've dealt with it about the 30 signings. But for a lot longer, Forest were a standing joke as a club that, you know, pre-Watford, with a club that changed their manager every half an hour. Now we've stuck with one. We've stuck with one. We've broken that cycle, that habit. And, you know, right now, I'm looking at my club. I'm proud of them for just staying in this division.
Yeah, but you've said that all season. You've said that's all you wanted.
And you know, Sav, and Potsy knows this, and all the lads that I talk to, and they're all smashing lads, and I love talking football with them. But they've all said, they all tell you, I've just said 17th will do me. We're 16th. What we've done, we've won ourselves a break for our lads. Steve won't have a break. He'll be constantly thinking. But then I'd like to think now the real prize is a considered, measured approach to recruitment leading up to this. And we won't be operating in the markets that Tottenham and Arsenal and Chelsea and the real big guns are. But if we're canny, we could perhaps pick up a bargain from Brazil, perhaps pick up a bargain from the Bundesliga, like we bought in Danilo. We bought in Taiwo Awoniyi from Union Berlin. we brought in Musa from Mainz, we brought in Oral Mangala from Stuttgart, or we might sort of look at what can we get from, say, Leeds or Leicester or Southampton. That's where we are. And I'm just, it's the most serene I've felt about Nottingham Forest for a long, long time, and it's a lovely feeling, let me tell you. But I have no worries about the owner. I think he appreciates that. What I do know is that if the standards aren't maintained, then he won't hesitate to act.
Yeah,
So I think
that's the key thing. I mean, Albert, from your point of view, has it been ridiculous, the number of manager sackings this year? Because I get it that people want that new manager bounce, etc. But how do clubs ever build anything if they're constantly sacking managers every sort of 6 months? It's not good, is it, for football in general?
No, but unfortunately, with the demands of football, and you get trigger finger, you get people panicking, particularly at the bottom end of the table. And if they're prepared to pull the trigger, Savva, and sack the manager, they will. So
they will.
So this was coming in terms of, we say 12, 13 sackings, whether you agree with it or not. But then fans will tell you from their respective clubs, you know what, it was coming. There's no way they could keep the manager on and whatever. I mean, I'll go, for example, I did a show on my channel, which is not just about Arsenal, it's about bringing other clubs in. We spoke about the relegation battle. And in regards to Leeds, Savva, I said, I've been on your channel before, I said it. Leeds one of my tips to go down this season.
Yeah.
They conceded 78 goals this season. You can't stay up there, and they can't score. They cannot.
And made Tottenham look really good at the weekend.
I said this to another Tottenham fan and said, as bad as Tottenham have been, Leeds were never going to win that game. You can't. The amount of goals they concede is crazy.
Albert, do you know what I found crazy about that game? Right, even from a Spurs perspective, I'm thinking to myself, if anyone watches Spurs, the one place we're not very good is the back, right? So I'm thinking to myself, if he plays Crencio, Somerville, if he plays Gnonto, all of these quick players off our wing backs and our centre backs don't like it. When I saw the lineup from Leeds, I was like, I'll take that. All of the skillful, creative players, all on the bench.
Which is nuts.
And I thought,
it's crazy.
Okay, cool. And listen, they were direct in the first half. They caused a few problems with long balls, but that's not what hurts Spurs as much as running at them. And for me, I think for the manager that claimed he can't learn anything off Klopp and Pep, it was really, I mean, listen, it was futile in the end, right? They were going to get relegated. But do you think they would have had more chance, Albert, if they had kept Jesse Marsh?
No, I thought they was lucky to start last season.
Okay.
I thought they were very, very lucky. That's why there's one of my tips to go down. And they don't score enough goals. You can't. Yes, Bamford had a period at Leeds when in the Championship when he came up in the first season of the Premier League, but too many injuries. And I'm not being funny. Okay, cool. I don't watch Leeds week in, week out, but I know what Bielsa meant. But they were on a horrid run of results, right? They brought in Jesse March. He just about stayed up. They're very lucky to start up, in my opinion. You sack Javi Gracia. I don't care how experienced the manager is, Savva and Dave. You cannot give a manager 4 games to save the club in the Premier League. That's absolutely insanity, which shows me they shouldn't have brought in Javi Gracia in the first place.
That was such a weird appointment, Gracia.
Yeah, I didn't see that
such
coming.
a strange appointment. Surely, for me, I even said, like, when Conte went to Spurs, and I think Leeds should have done this as well when Jesse Marsh went. If you want to stabilise for the rest of the season, bring in a Harry Redknapp, bring in a man manager, someone that will come in, been there, seen it, done it, put their arm. But if you're going to bring in Allardyce, bring him in with 3-4 months to go.
Exactly.
You can't bring a manager in with 4 games and expect him to sort out that mess.
Everton boys got it just right with Daichi. They maybe could have done it earlier, but in the end, Sean Dyche was probably just about the right man at just about the right moment.
Yeah.
And I think, like you say, I mean, Sam Allardyce to me is a guy of like former years, a Steve Bruce or somebody like that. And I just couldn't see it happening. And he didn't help himself with some of the pronouncements he made. And I think the trouble is these days, and I'm not saying it's just a facet of football. It's kind of like a facet of life. Everybody wants instant gratification straight away, and nobody is prepared to play the long game, if you like. Forest have sort of now seen the benefit of playing the long game. I mean, you know, they may not have had as great a season as the last 2 seasons, but, you know, West Ham have stuck with David Moyes, and he's got them a chance. Whatever we think of the Europa Conference League, he's got them a chance to get a European trophy. And I'll tell you what,
Lawless and stop selling me,
you know, I think with all due deference to Lawless, if it was Forest playing,
has Lawless turned everyone into Fiorentina fans? Is that what's going on here? Is everyone going to go and get their purple Fiorentina, or am I going to have to get my Batistuta shirt out from the late 90s? You know what
I mean, to be honest with you,
it would look like a tank top now. But
I think this, Sam. I think I want them to win it because they're a British club. I want English clubs to win these things.
Yeah, but Dave, you're not a London. No offense, you're not a fan from London, right?
No, I'm not. I have
West Ham
out
fans.
Yeah, do you know what, lads?
Unbearable.
You're not. The thing is, what I've worked out this season is that the London football in London is kind of its own little separated ecosystem. It's like Australia with marsupials. You don't get those kind of animals anywhere else in the world, do you? You know what I mean? And it's like with London football, some of the views you hear, whether it's D or whether it's Lawless or whether it's Potsy or you know, any of the, and I love listening to these lads. You kind of think, oh, it's a bit different up here in the Midlands, you know, with us and Villa and the Wolves and all that kind of stuff. But I do think that if West Ham win it, then they'll probably think, you know, fair play. I saw David Moyes. I'll tell you what impressed me with David Moyes. When they beat Leeds last Sunday, you know, that afternoon, Leeds were thinking, well, West Ham are sort of like going to be thinking about the final. They're going to be thinking about resting players. They're going to make a ruck of changes or whatever. And that West Ham would lie down for them. As it turned out, Leeds were pathetic. West Ham won 3-1. And there was footage of Moyes in the change room afterwards. And was he fired up? He wasn't treating it as like, let's just get this game out of the way and then get the next one at Leicester out of the way before we concentrate on Fiorentina. He wanted West Ham to put a performance in. And maybe Moyes long term isn't the answer, but right now he could give them, West Ham, I believe, their first ever European trophy. And I started off being really sarcastic and sceptical of this Europa Conference League because of Lawless, right? Because I kind of think, oh, please let them get me. But as he's gone along, I've kind of come around to thinking, yeah, if it was Forest and we were getting a European trophy, I'd be really happy. So
Dave, I'm not having it.
You.
Not having it.
Especially with Lawless. No.
I've got too many West Ham mates, and if they win that, all I'm going to get forever is we've won a trophy, you ain't, and it'll be like, oh, good God, like just.
Without being awful, can I just say, without being awful to you two lads, I'm just looking over here at my little cabinet, and I've got 2 European cups sat over here on my shelf. So sorry, lads.
Yeah, but have you got a signed picture of David Ginola? I mean, you know,
no. Actually, no, I can't compete with that, Sam. No,
yeah, exactly.
I've got grey hair, but I can't grow it very long like him. You know what I mean?
Guys, I want to just for the Spurs fans in the chat, I just want to have a quick conversation about Harry Kane, if there's such a thing as a quick conversation. We've got there now. We've got to the end of the season, and for the last half of the season, it's very much been conversations about amongst Spurs fans of what happens when Kane goes. Does Kane go? Is there a manager that can keep Kane? Does he want another rebuild? Would he stay for a new project? Then tonight, Fabrizio Romano announced that Karim Benzema at Real Madrid has informed them that he's been offered a mega money deal from Saudi Arabia. If I've got that right, I think it was Saudi Arabia. Bear with me 1 second. Fabrizio Romano has said this. Karim Benzema's decision expected by the end of this week. No intention to take a lot of time after receiving mega bid from Saudi last Friday. Now, I may be doing 2 and 2 and getting 10, but in my mind, guys, do you think if Benzema leaves Real Madrid, the natural replacement is that they're going to come calling for Harry Kane? Because there's not many strikers in the world at that level. and Kane and Benzema are definitely at that level. But what do you think? Do you think there's a possibility?
Ooh, I said on your show last time, I actually could see Kane staying. I actually could see him staying for next season. I still think it's a possibility, but you know what I mean. Football moves fast, man. You know what I mean. Yesterday's news is yesterday's news. It's not. I wouldn't rule it out. And if I was a betting man, I think he will be at Tottenham next season.
I think so. So,
yeah,
but do you think though that Real Madrid will come asking the question?
Yes, because it's Real Madrid.
Right. So I'll ask you this question then, Dave. Just quickly before I say what I was going to ask, I'll ask both of you. Dave, do you think Real Madrid, if Benzema leaves, will come calling for Harry Kane?
I think they'll certainly ask the question, Sav, to be honest. I just think with the Harry Kane thing, I kind of think one thing 1 minute and another thing the next. You know, there are so many possibilities with the Harry Kane situation. You know, somebody in this country, it seems like that's feasible. Real Madrid, now you've mentioned it, that seems feasible. And as Albert so rightly said, and he's generally on point as Albert, staying at Tottenham also seems like, unfortunately, I can't get inside Harry's head. All I would say about Harry is that he's got a young family, and I think he might have another one on the way. I saw a picture of him and his lady, and he was patting her tum like she'd swallowed a mitre size 5 match ball. And you just the thing is, I think Harry Kane's a decent lad and he's a bright lad. He will look down. He will sit down. One thing about Harry Kane, you don't ever hear any sort of scandal or rumor in the media, and I think he'll sit down. He'll sit down with his wife. He'll sit down with his family, and he'll make a considered decision. And I think what he'll do, he'll mull it over. You won't find. I don't think you'll find Harry Kane. I mean, his connection to Tottenham is so deep and emotional, I guess, that he'll have to bear that in mind. But at the same time, Tottenham, I think, as a club, are at a crossroads.
Massively.
The route they take next, it as you say, Sav, it could go anyway. I cannot definitively answer the Harry Kane.
Guys, here's the question. And listen, as with anything, when a top player is going to move, there's so many moving parts, right? There's so many moving parts. Family life, different country. What's the fee going to be? What are the clauses? Blah, 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 blah. Let's play a hypothetical game. If Madrid come calling and Daniel Levy says, right, he's got 1 year left on his contract, give us 110 million, you can have him. If Madrid go, yeah, let's do that, and Harry Kane turns it down, I've asked this question to everyone. Do you turn down Real Madrid? Right. First of all, who turns down Real Madrid, the biggest club in world football?
No one.
Secondly, when you are a player that, you know, some players you go, oh, he could turn it down because he's won 3 leagues, a couple of Champions Leagues. Kane's not won anything.
No.
Could he afford at 30 to turn down Real Madrid in this hypothetical situation?
You've kind of answered the question, and I'd say the same. When Madrid come calling, it's a different call, man.
Yeah.
Bale, Owen, Manaman's gone there.
Beckham.
I don't know any player. I don't know any player that has turned down Madrid. And at Kane's age now, I get the family thing. It is a very plausible point.
Yeah, of course.
But this is Real Madrid.
Yeah.
And I think even Harry Kane, if the money was put on the table, I think he would find that very difficult to turn that down.
Yeah. And the amount of money, Albert, involved in that would make that very young family secure for life. So I think to answer your question, Sab, and we're in a hypothetical environment here.
Every football conversation is hypothetical, right? We're talking transfers, everything.
You know, is it Perez, the president of Real Madrid or whoever, and he comes and he rings Harry Kane up again hypothetically. He says, look, Harry, how do you fancy it over here? You know, I think at his age and having no medals on his table, even if he goes and he wins a Copa del Rey or something like that, that's tempting. And Yeah, if a direct question from Real Madrid gets asked of and to Harry Kane, I actually think he probably would look at that very seriously.
Yeah,
I think you've got to, right? I mean,
yeah, he has. Yeah.
First and foremost, if he's going, he's 30 years of age. If they were to offer him a 4 or 5 year contract, in 4/5 years, Real Madrid are going to win the league at some point in that 5 years.
Yeah,
they will.
Yeah.
They will. They will probably win a couple of Champions Leagues because they're Real Madrid is what they do.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
you've got the conversation with Mbappe, but lots of the reports are suggesting that Mbappe is not happening until next summer, right? So Real Madrid won't be able to lose Benzema and not buy anyone. I don't think they've got anyone in the club that would score anywhere near the amount of goals of a Harry Kane. Then you look at the other strikers that would be available to them of that ilk, and you've got Lewandowski, who's at Barcelona. That's not happening.
Yeah.
Erling Haaland's at Man City. After 1 year, that's not happening. You've got, now I'm struggling. You've got Benzema, who's going to leave them.
Yeah.
Kane, who we're talking about.
Yeah.
Who is after that, lads, where's is Osman
We've said on Sav, we've said on
ready?
here before. Yeah, we've said on here before, Sav. Me and you have had the conversation. Maybe Albert's been on it as well. There aren't that many. There's a handful. Yeah. If I'm a centre forward, right, and I'm trying to empathise with Harry Kane, and I can imagine Harry Kane is knows his football history. If I was being offered the chance to be a Real Madrid centre forward and follow in the footsteps of Alfredo Di Stefano, then I would say, hey, I was a Real Madrid centre forward. Even if he only did it for 3 months or whatever, 2 months, or whatever, I've been a Real Madrid centre forward. And I'd like to think, it may not be the case for him, but if it was me, somebody said, would you like to be centre forward for Real Madrid? And I said, what, follow Di Stefano and what he meant to Real Madrid? Yeah, I'd take that. So I think it's a great question you asked, Sav. And I don't think he'd be able to turn it down.
Only because, look, I listen, first and foremost, listen, as a Spurs fan, you guys know me. I think I'm pretty level-headed with most football conversations.
Absolutely,
right?
mate. Absolutely.
As a Spurs fan, selfishly, you want Kane to sign 4-year, 5-year deal, see out his career at Spurs. However, if he does that, I really do, if I take my Spurs hat off, I really question his ambition as a footballer.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. If Spurs were what Newcastle are right now and going like that with loads of money on this project, I'd go, I get it. But Harry Kane has been through a number of managers.
Yeah.
He's now seen us drop out of Europe.
Yeah.
He's seeing us, really, we're a one-man team. The Spurs fans don't want to believe that, some of them, but we are the Harry Kane team. And I just can't imagine in any scenario, and it could be United, we'll talk about that in a minute, but I can't imagine in any scenario where one of the best strikers in the world is told Real Madrid want you, and he goes, no, I want to stay and play for Tottenham Hotspur. I just think that would be...
It sounds crazy, yeah, it does.
Baffling.
Yeah.
Baffling. So just quickly to wrap off the Kane conversation, it's amazing how loads of the comments just built up when I started talking about Harry Kane. And by the way, when I bring up these subjects, guys, my mind completely blank there. When I bring up these subjects, guys, I'm not trying to will Harry Kane away. I'm just being really honest that at some point this guy's gonna get
football moves quickly. Then you know what I mean.
It really does.
It does.
So is Man United an attractive proposition if they get, even with or without the new Qatari owners? Man United, they've gone back this way this year. They've got a manager in that looks like he doesn't take any nonsense. Would Kane have more chance of silverware at Man United than Tottenham? And can we see that as a more plausible option than Real Madrid?
I think if he went to Manchester United, he may have to wait a little longer to get a trophy than if he went to Real Madrid. But I really think United are beginning to rediscover themselves. I mean, I actually think United have been really good this season. I mean, if you could consider the start they had against Brighton and Brentford, we all kind of thought, oh, here we go again. And it was Rangnick and it was Ollie and all that business. And that inability to fill the shoes that Sir Alex left behind.
Yeah.
But I really see in Ten Hag. The moment I thought that Ten Hag was the guy who could finally not necessarily fill the shoes of Sir Alex, but be a decent approximation of that, was when he dealt with Ronaldo. And I thought dealing with Ronaldo was a brilliant move. Yeah, he's been a great player, but I felt that he was more of a hindrance to United than a help.
He was.
Yeah, he was there too long. Now he then dealt with it. So I think Harry Kane would I think he would dovetail pretty well with Eric Ten Hag. I think Harry Kane strikes me as a disciplined sort of person, disciplined sort of player.
Mm-hmm.
Other people might disagree with that.
Harry Kane's a very professional footballer. You know, I mean, you don't see anything about him in the papers.
No.
I never have for
No.
drinking, being out.
No.
You know, he's a family man.
Yeah.
I just think if you chucked Harry Kane into this Man United setup instead of Weghorst, no offense, I think Weghorst has gone there and done.
Yeah.
He's done a job what they needed in terms of holding the ball up and all that kind of stuff. But if you've then got, I mean, let me throw this at you. If Man United, this is with just one signing, and I'm sure they're going to make many more. If their forward six is Casemiro, Eriksen, and Bruno Fernandes, with Rashford left, Kane through the middle, and Anthony right, that's quite tasty.
Yeah.
That's got a little bit of everything. It's got pace, it's got flair, it's got Casemiro, it's got Kane who can hold the ball up, Kane who can drop deep into midfield.
It would help Sancho as well. I think it would bring Sancho on as well, actually.
Yeah.
Because, Harry Kane, right, has got fantastic experience. And I've thought for a long time that Harry Kane and Manchester United seem to be made for each other. I think if they were, Harry Kane scored 32 goals this year in a side that has massively underachieved. That is a phenomenal achievement. Yeah. He doesn't know Tottenham anything. I think, they built a stadium based on his goals. I mean, he's gone past the greatest goal scorer in my lifetime. Yeah. Jimmy Greaves is the greatest goal scorer this country's ever seen, right? And Harry Kane's gone past that. He's the leading goal scorer for his country.
In more games.
Yeah, in more games. But you know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? There's all context. And I think if I was like being entirely pragmatic, which is not something I'm always like able to do, I think it's time for Tottenham to sort of start a new era.
Yeah. Prepare.
The only thing I would say that it would be nice, looking at Tottenham, there's problems on the field, but Mr. Levy just seems to be a real problem. And how do you go about sorting that out? You know what I mean? Again, I am talking from an outsider's point of view, looking in. But having said that, I've heard lots and lots of Tottenham people who love Tottenham Hotspur speaking from their hearts about their club in recent times, and we're united at Forest behind Steve Cooper. Everybody seems at Tottenham seems to be united in front of Levy, and you almost kind of can't see Tottenham being sorted until that guy
get a manager first, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just before I come to you, Albert, just one comment that where I think that football fans are very reactionary and want to be really controversial. Sorry, Fuzzy Khan, I'm going to bring this up, but when you said sorry, but Ten Hag is an overrated manager, United fans will be calling him out next season. Watch this space. If we actually break down what Ten Hag has done in 1 year at Man United, right? In 1 year at Man United, he's taken a team that was a complete shambles that had no direction.
Yeah, he's done a mess.
He's removed a very difficult situation in Ronaldo, but done it brilliantly. I felt he handled that sensationally. Yeah. He's had major injuries to their two main centre halves for the run into the end of the season. They're 17 points better off than last year.
Rebuilt Rashford as well. Rebuilt Marcus Rashford as well.
I've got that's on my thumb. Don't worry. 2 cup finals. He's won one of them. Got another one to play, and they've just finished 3rd in the Premier League. When we're talking about someone being overrated, where is any evidence? Like Fuzzy Khan, I know that football fans want to have these opinions on players and managers, but hasn't he just proved that's a brilliant first year, isn't it?
Yeah,
Albert, if you had offered that to Man United fans back in August, and especially after their first 3 or 4 games, getting your hand off.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they'd be popping champagne. It's you know what, it tends to happen a lot. It tends to happen a lot, Savva. Football generally, not even associated with any of the clubs we support, where if a player's doing well and getting a lot more recognition, he's overrated. I've seen it with Ben White. I've seen it with Declan Rice. I've seen it with managers. So I would like to know. Yeah, listen, football's about opinion, like the great Brian Clough said once. I think he did say that. When I hear things like that, then my obvious question is, Savva, then why?
Yeah,
what?
Yeah,
provide evidence.
Yeah, it's because he's come. Man United is a massive football club, man. They've had managers in there. They've had some good managers. They've had experienced managers. They've had okay managers in terms of they've been managers, but not nowhere in terms of like you look at Oli. But they've had Van Gaal. They've had Moyes. They've had Jose Mourinho. Whatever you think of them. But he's come in his first season in English football. He's already got them a trophy. Like you said, finished third. The points return in terms of the difference from last season. It will have another transfer window as well. I mean, I don't really know. I mean, I don't really.
It depends what you want. If they want to win absolutely every single match ever in history, then they're like going against the laws of human nature. They're going against the laws of physics. They're going against the laws of all sorts. I mean, at the start of the season, I thought United would be 5th or 6th. And
I think most people did.
Yeah,
Dave, at the beginning of this season, every Man United fan I was speaking to was saying, "Look, if we can scrape 4th, it'll be great." But listen, we're not expecting a lot this year. But I think the thing is, football fans seem to think that this is the 90s and early noughties when Man United were dominant.
Yeah,
this is not that. And now there's so many teams with that money to rival. I mean, look at this for a comment. And yet, Oli finished higher than Ten Hag, but Ten Hag's literally taken over the team in the summer and had 1 year, and he's finished 3rd, 2 cup finals. He's won the first one. I think they'll get battered in the second, but I don't understand that every football fan seems to think that every club can win the league. Like next year, Chelsea, City, Arsenal, Liverpool, Man United, they can't all win it.
No, I tend to think, I think some of these folks play a little bit too much Football Manager and a little bit too much FIFA. And football, honestly, Sav, Albert, I played football, league football, decent football until I was 43. I've never yet played a game of football with me twiddling thumbs or me keyboard tapping fingers. Yeah. So this is why I get really irritated when I hear DM, CM, and all this kind of thing. And I'm thinking, what is that? A wing half? Is that a centre half? What is that?
An 8, a 6, the double pivot.
And I don't mean to seem like a Philistine or or like a Luddite, whatever. But it's bullshit.
Do you guys remember when do you remember when the double pivot in midfield used to just be called the midfield partnership? It was just like there's no pivot. It's not a double pivot. It's 2 midfielders. Like back in the day, it used to have 2 centre mids, and there wasn't one that held and one that went. They did everything. Like central midfielders were up and down, and it was Vinny Samways, David Howells, Naeem, Gascoigne, Paul Stewart, mate. To reel off the 5 that played in the 1991 Cup final that I went to, you know what I mean? And Tony Venables and Cloughie were sat there that day in the dugout at Wembley, and not one of them would have said, "Hey, young man, what about your DM?" And Venables would have said, "I don't know, mate. I've got a DM, but I've got a midfielder." And it's like, I know I sound terrible and I sound like an old fart, but let's play football on grass, not on bloody computers. You know what I mean? It's crazy, isn't it? I mean, the thing is, every time somebody doesn't do well, it's like, the manager.
That's the end of his life,
Yeah. It's like I've seen some Chelsea fans already today talking about Poch and saying, "Yeah, well, if he doesn't win anything next year, he's failed." And you're like, "Whoa, hang on, look where he's picking you up from." Like, hang on. Exactly. Like, can we take a second, take a breather?
They're 30 points behind us, man. Right.
Imagine, I mean, with Steve Cooper, right? Let me just talk about my own club just for 1 minute.
Go for it. We love Forest. Go on.
We were at the bottom of the championship last year. We played 8 games, of which we won. No, we got 1 draw in 8 games at the start of the championship season, right? I remember we lost to Cardiff and Middlesbrough at home in a week. And Steve Cooper came in, and I was quite happy with the appointment based on what he'd done at Swansea, what he'd done in winning a World Cup with the under-17s, England under-17s. And my first thought, well, he cannot be worse than what's gone previously, either this season or, So, like, Savva, you're bang on, mate. You always are. And I'm not blowing smoke up your jacksie, but it's a case of, like, context.
Context is everything.
Yeah, what football fans don't do these days, Savva. And I don't think it's entirely their fault, because it's the way the media packages images and words and data and information and all this kind of stuff. They don't have a broad view on stuff. Or I might be doing them a disservice, but most of them don't seem to have that broader view. And so for Arsenal, you have to look at where they've been for the last few years. Tottenham, you have to look at where they've been for the last year. Leicester City, for example, look at what's happened with them.
7, 8, yeah.
I look at, with Nottingham Forest, my context is now 24 years, and it'll be 25 next season.
For me, it's listen, I'm very much one that says, I try to keep context and say what could happen. It's the sweeping comments like Ten Hag is overrated. It's like, whoa, hang on, okay, based on what? It's things like this time last year when Man City signed Erling Haaland, the number of fans that had clearly never watched Bundesliga football or Champions League football with him going, yeah, this guy will really struggle in the Premier League. Then the narrative this year is, well, it's not fair because City have got that guy up front. Well, hang on, that guy was the guy you were saying would struggle to get 15 Premier League goals. I just feel that, look, at the beginning of seasons, we all do that thing where I'm sure we will as well. As we do the football throwdown towards the beginning of the season, we'll be like, right, who's first, second, third, and fourth? None of us will be exactly right, because that's how life works. Managers will get sacked. This will happen. Top scorers will get injured. But, people, I don't know. It just feels, I don't know if I'm getting old, Dave. I don't know, but it just all feels, it all feels so aggressive and,
Yeah, Savva, I know exactly where you're coming from, mate. And I kind of, I sometimes when I come on, I've been on a few shows where, I'm on with somebody. I try to see everything in a sort of objective. Albert knows this because we've done shows together, and I've thoroughly enjoyed them. But what I don't want to I've been on shows where people have been ranting, effing and blinding. This guy's no good. That guy's no good. He should be thrown out. That guy needs to be assassinated. That guy's family needs to be shot, and all this kind of stuff. And I felt like I'm the one who's out of place, because these people go, yeah, go for it, mate, go for it. And I'm like, no, I don't want to do that. And I think, it's like, there's a guy who does a YouTube, is it Rory Jennings or something? He had to eat his words about Erling Haaland, and he was very, very
he says a lot of interesting things, Dave.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I think he might be a person who plays football with his sons, dear Rory, bless him. Obviously, never made a 50-50 tackle on a muddy pitch covered in dog shit, does he? Let's put it like that. But
by the way, just really quickly, by the way, Pep Guardiola has just won the LMA Manager of the Year award.
Well, not a surprise.
Shock. Breaking news.
We've had our views. Us three have had our views about that, haven't we? I mean, the thing is, like we said, Sam, we were cynical enough to say it will always be the guy that finishes top. Although you could chuck into that conversation. Me and Albert have had this conversation. Me and you have had it, Sam. You could chuck in Eddie Howe. You could chuck in Arteta. You could definitely chuck in De Zerbi. You could chuck in Gary O'Neill. You could chuck in Thomas Frank. I'm going to be parochial and say you could chuck in Stevie Cooper. You could chuck in David Moyes for getting West Ham to a European final. There's a whole host, but it's always the guy at the top.
Yeah, it always is. I mean, some bloke said, congratulations on Forest staying up, Dave. So glad Forest belong in the Premier League. I would have been a Forest fan from London if not for my dad pushing Spurs on me. Love Spurs, but generally care about Forest. Listen, Forest were a big part of the Premier League or at the time Division 1. First Division. Yeah. And so it's good to have you guys back. But I do feel like as well, like somebody today was like, oh, Savva, give me your prediction for first, second, third, and fourth next year. And I'm like, can we have the transfer window first? Like, can we, do you know what I mean? Can we have a transfer window and can we see who's going to be whose manager? And just quickly,
all I would say, Sav, my new season has already started, mate, because I'm thinking of buying my ticket for the Notts County friendly on July the 15th, mate. So there's no close season.
Well, guys, I did want to touch upon. I wanted to touch, obviously, Pochettino finally signing, I think, the worst kept secret for the last month that he's joining Chelsea. I think it's a phenomenal appointment for where they are right now.
Yeah.
In terms of a lot of young players that need they need a system, they need a coach, they need to learn how to do the basics again. And all I'm seeing so far is Chelsea fans just giving him stick because he's Spurs, or saying that he's got 1 year to prove himself. I feel like this could be the best thing that happens to Chelsea if they let it. I don't know. What do you guys make of Pochettino to Chelsea?
What's he got? A 2-year deal, was it? Is it a 2-year deal?
I think he's got a 2-year deal.
Okay. Yeah, well, it's funny because obviously I know a couple of Tottenham fans. I've one that didn't mind him coming back to Tottenham if it was possible at the time. One that didn't want him back. But it's you make a good point, man. And it's interesting with Chelsea fans, man. I actually don't know that many, if I'm being honest. But you know, I mean, they could have it. They could have started with Graham Potter if they really wanted to. I mean, what's the alternative? I mean, yes, he's got ties to Tottenham. I get it, but I think deep down, Savva, whether they want to admit it or not, I don't know how many Chelsea fans you know. I think they're going to be happy. I think they're going to be pretty happy with the appointment. Very happy.
I just wonder if they're going to turn.
Yeah, the thing is, Savva, like Chelsea have had some very, very good managers, right? Let's have it right. They've had some of the, Ancelotti's been there, Scolari's been there, AVB's been there.
Dave Sexton.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, they've had some very, very, very good managers, Chelsea. For me personally, if I was a Chelsea fan, if I never would be one, but listen, with the position that they've in, they sacked Tuchel. They brought in Graham Potter, that didn't work. They brought in Frank Lampard as caretaker. It still baffles me, to be honest with you, that one. But anyways, that's their club. But yeah, listen, he's got some players to work with there. It'd be interesting to see actually what activity they do. I know we spoke about Forest, about the transfer activity they got into, but with what Chelsea have spent under Bowley already, I mean, the one area they do need to address more than anything is bloody obvious. Is need to get forward. Yeah. Now, as you mentioned, Savva, earlier, strikers are very difficult to find. Ottoman, forget it for any club. He's just won the Scudetto at Napoli. He probably got the freedom of the city in Naples. He's not going anywhere, and he's got
they're not going to want to lose Spalletti and their top goal scorer in one summer, right?
Yeah, so, no chance. So striker wise, they're really going to have to do their homework, man. They're really, really have to do their homework because there's not many out there, and Chelsea have got the pulling, but they've got the spending power most definitely. So,
see, I think where Chelsea are at, that obviously they're not. I mean, they might be looking at a Kane, but for me, what Chelsea need is a Vlahovic or Højlund from. I said Højlund, not Haaland, from Atalanta. But what they have already got, and this is what, again, we don't know. Everyone will have their opinion in a sec when I say this, but they might have Lukaku back, who I think Poch would like. I think Poch will like that.
There's a conversation to be had in it. Yeah.
Of course, you've got Nkunku, who's coming in, who scores a bundle of goals and assists. He's a top player. I just feel like for how young that squad is now, because obviously he'll get rid of Azpilicuetas, and already you're starting to see it. Look, Loftus-Cheek is off to AC Milan today. Yeah. Azpilicueta will go, Ziyech will go, Aubameyang will go. He'll ring the changes. Then they're left with all the young players they've bought. Now chuck in a top keeper that they'll buy. If they're in talks with Ugarte already.
Yes.
And Kunku's already coming. trust me, as from a Spurs fan who saw Poch, do I think Poch is the greatest manager in the world? No. Do I think he's a fantastic coach? Yes.
Yes.
He will coach that team to with an inch of their life as to how to play. And at the moment, what you've seen from them is have 3 managers this year and 55 different formations. Every game there's a different 11 playing.
Crazy.
They're not in Europe, so he'll be able to pick a settled team. I think they'll be good. Now, that's not me saying I think they'll win the league. I don't, but I do think they'll be challenging top 4. I do. I think they've got money.
Sam, I kind of foresee Chelsea. You know, if you're taking an optimistic view of Chelsea, you could see Chelsea having a similar maybe sort of season to the one United have had this year, where
possibly.
And Arsenal as well. I took into this. It's not successful. It's kind of progressive. It's making steps in the right direction. And I think what you have to remember about Pochettino is he learned at the feet of the master, if you like. So I think he worked under Bielsa at Newell's, I think, or something like that. So he's got that understanding. I just think, I mean, with Chelsea, I found we went to Chelsea a fortnight ago. We got a point, which, you know, actually proved a disappointment. We came away from Stamford Bridge thinking,
could have beat them,
we could have beaten them, Albert. Forest will. We've missed a chance. We'll never get a better chance to beat Chelsea at the Bridge. It'll be. We probably won't do it next year with Pochettino. I think he's a good guy. I think he engenders spirit. People warm to him, and those lads at Chelsea will want to play for him. And I think if he can then sort of generate that in the dressing room, it'll spread to the stands, because that day at Chelsea, it was an away day we were all looking forward to, but it felt like a home game for Forest because there was no atmosphere in that ground at all.
Do you know what I don't understand? I'll come to you on this one, Albert. What I don't understand is, like this comment up here where someone said, can he handle the egos? For me, I think the problem at Chelsea is I don't think they've got any egos anymore. And by the way, when we talk about egos in
football, very
timid. That's not always a bad thing, right? We automatically assume, can they handle an ego? An ego doesn't have to be a bad thing. Just because a manager can't handle an ego doesn't mean the ego is bad. Like people say, oh, look at Messi's ego. Messi's ego wasn't too bad when he was winning everything at Barcelona and dragged Argentina to a World Cup, right? But you've got to be able to manage it. But at Chelsea, I'm looking at that team now with all those young players and thinking, where are the egos? Because
you know what? You know why
they are.
You know why I think people say that, and they labeled that at Emery when he's at PSG. But I'm not being funny. I don't care how good a manager you are. When you've got a dressing room full of probably 2 or 3 of the best players that have played football for the last 30 years, I find any manager find it very easy to manage players like that. So I think that's where that kind of comes from. But you're right with this Chelsea side. This is not the likes of the Ballacks and the Drogbas and the Terrys. They're not there anymore.
No. I thought they had 3 weeks ago, Forest, that Nottingham Forest of all people were disappointed at only a point at Stamford Bridge. And Steve came out afterwards, and we were thinking, what a point in our relegation battle here. Fantastic. Steve was like, he pointed over his shoulder as he saw me, said, they're sitting in there thinking we could have got more. And I looked at Chelsea, I looked at like Conor Gallagher, Madueke, Buddy Shealy.
Yeah.
They seemed like a really nice bunch of lads. And Forest could have bullied them if they'd really got it. You know, it wasn't, we're kind of like, bro, is that Chelsea? It was somehow.
Put it this way, Dave.
Cheated almost, you know.
What he's picking up at Chelsea compared to what he picked up when he came to Tottenham, he's got what he needs. He's got young players with good engines. I said this earlier in the week, right? Listen, I'm not a Chelsea fan, but if I look from what they've got at the moment, even without new signings, you've got Reece James, Badiashile, Fofana, and Chilwell as a back 4. I would love that at Spurs. You've got Enzo Fernandez in midfield, and they're going to buy someone to play alongside him. You've then got Nkunku, who's going to come in and be a first-team starter for sure. We don't know what he's going to do with Madueke, with Mudryk. Will he get the best out of them? They've only just joined, but they've joined a really disjointed team. I just feel that if the Chelsea fans are patient, he will stamp his mark. The question mark for me with Poch will be, if they do get back to the summit, it's the key moments to get over the line. But I think if you get sensible Chelsea fans, they'll realise, like Albert said, they're not that team with Lampard, Ballack, Drogba, Terry, SEM. They're not that anymore.
They've been spoilt with what they've had for so long, and this is. I mean, they finished 12th, so they're looking up at Fulham, Palace, Brentford, Brighton, Villa, teams that they've, without being awful to them, they've kind of habitually looked down on them. And Chelsea have got to deal with this culture. I will guarantee that Chelsea will be far better next season. And I think Chelsea will. They'll be far, far better next season. I mean, it's kind of interesting. It throws into stark contrast, and I'm sorry for saying this, Savva, that Poch is readily going to Chelsea. You know, there were people saying, "Oh, he might go back to Tottenham," and I'm sorry, but however poor Chelsea are at the moment, they seem to be a more attractive proposition.
Of course.
Than Tottenham in 8th.
But Dave, this is what you were talking about, right? This is when you were talking about the right nowism. Yeah, people think because Chelsea have had a bad year. Listen, I'd still pick Chelsea over Tottenham every day of the week if I was a player being transferred. And I think one of the things we have to take into account as well, this year, right? Do you know where Chelsea stood on the number of chances created?
No, tell us.
Second.
Wow.
Second behind Man City. Right? Now imagine you add in, I don't know, let's just say Lukaku at the moment, it could be another striker, Nkunku, you know.
Awoniyi.
But these are players that will score goals. Even if they get 15, 18 each. This year, they've had Kai Havertz up front.
Oh my God. Yeah, I know.
Do you know what I mean? So I think I think they're going to be okay. And by that, I mean, I think they'll be challenging for 4th. But I think what Chelsea fans have got to do is not the moment you lose one game, go, oh my God, see Poch, Spurs and we hate him. And I just don't think it will work if they do that.
Yeah.
But
I agree. Totally agree. Sam, it's almost like I said, when we were having a bad run earlier in this year and everybody wanted to get rid of Steve, I'm like, and I actually said on the show, you know, there are some people out there who want a new manager after every single one defeat. And it's ridiculous, you know. Play the long game. I feel, right, with us, I've been rewarded for my patience.
That's a good point.
Pre-season.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. I think Chelsea will be much better next year. I'll tell you what, when we go to Stamford Bridge next year and somebody goes, well, you got a point there last year, I go, it'll be a far better. Yeah. And I think some of those who've been poor this year, I mean, I look at Havertz and I think there's a really good player there trying to get out. He's got so much ability, but he just looks, I don't know if it's because he's an introvert or he's a quiet lad, a shy lad, whatever. He just looks like he's not very happy. He looks like he's going through the motions. He needs an arm.
Where do you play?
Scored a winning goal in the Champions League final.
This is the thing for me. When I watch Havertz play football, I don't ever think, God, you're terrible. I look at him and my first thought is always, I'm just not sure what you are.
Exactly.
Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I agree. He's not a centre forward. I don't think he's a traditional playmaker in the 10. He's not a wide man. He's very unorthodox as a footballer.
Yeah.
Which talking about egos, he looks like he needs one. He looks like he needs to go bang. Yeah, I'm the main man, but he's not quite done that. So I think they need to add more ego rather than.
It's belief rather than ego, I think, Sam. Sure. I think belief is a more sophisticated word, if you like, than ego. Ego just like, I'm the best in the world. And you know, Patrick Vieira had it when Arsenal were great. Roy Keane had it when Manchester United were great. I used to say, and forgive my language, every great team needed a bastard. Liverpool back in the day had Graham Souness.
Yeah.
You know, Leeds had Norman Hunter. You go back beyond that, Dave Mackay at Tottenham. Dave was a hard bastard.
Yeah,
every team needs for them.
Just quickly, sorry, Robin, when you said Savva, you've been overestimating Chelsea all year long. After the winter window, you said they'll finish strong. Chelsea new signs are overrated and overpriced. They will struggle. First and foremost, I wasn't to know that they were going to have 3 different managers in one season, right? I wasn't to know that. Second of all, when you say their new signings are overrated, overpriced, and they will struggle. You have no way of knowing that. You have no way of knowing that.
Yeah,
Some of them will. Not every signing at every club works.
It's going to work, yeah.
So, for example, next year you might see that Mudryk soars and is brilliant.
Yeah.
Madueke isn't. Enzo Fernandez soars. Mudryk doesn't. But you can't bring in 14 new players, in 1 year with a new manager. So three different managers, a new technical director of football. Yeah. New owners, and expect in year one that, right, let's go, we're brilliant. And football fans, unfortunately, like you, Robin, don't understand that. And this is what I was saying again about the sweeping statements of all the Chelsea signings are overrated and overpriced. I'd take Badashile. I'd take Fofana. I'd take Enzo Fernandez in a heartbeat. That is a 100%. Quality midfielder right there.
Yeah,
I'd have Conor Gallagher at Forest. I would. I like him.
There you go,
played for Steve before. I mean,
people,
I just think
people don't want to give anyone any time. No one gets any time.
And that's it, Savva. That's a great point. Again, if I talk about my club, and I'm sorry to talk about my club a lot of hours, everybody at the start of the season, this one year's no good, Loddie's no good, God, Near Carty's rubbish, this, that, and the other. And now, these are the lads. Nico Williams was another.
Yeah.
Brennan, is he good enough?
Brennan
Morgan Gibbs-White. We've paid too much for Gibbs-White. And now we're at the point of the season with Nottingham Forest. These guys are now been the core of the side that's somehow kept us up, and I think will be a platform on which we can add hopefully some more quality moving forward.
But towards the end of your season, Dave, towards the end of your season, from what I saw, you might tell me if I'm wrong, I think he finally found the settled 11.
He did.
Yeah,
he did.
He had your best players back, and it was the same voice from Cooper. You've got these new players that have come out. Like, if you think about it, right? Let's talk about Mykhailo Mudryk. Forget the price tag. That's not his fault, right?
No.
You've got Mykhailo Mudryk, who's a young lad coming from the Ukrainian league to the Premiership.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
The manager that signed him goes straight away, right? You don't know what's going on with all the kind of war-torn stuff in Ukraine with his family or whatever.
Yeah, true.
And yet people are making compilations already of look how bad this guy is. And it's like, hang on.
Yeah.
Let him settle. Let him have a summer. Next year, if he gets a run of games, because I see Mudryk starts a game and then the next 3 games he's on the bench. No player can get consistency.
And Sav on top of that as well. If you actually look at his career, he's not actually played a lot of football.
No.
For club and country.
No, do I think he'll be brilliant? I don't know. I genuinely don't know. But look, when Son joined Tottenham, his first year was awful.
Yeah.
Thierry Henry at Arsenal. Thierry Henry's first year at Arsenal.
Bergkamp struggled. Perez struggled.
Right.
They all struggled.
But
Jack Grealish at City.
You've some players, but I would say if Mudryk had come at the beginning of the season into a really settled team, and looked how he looks now, I would say, a settled team that have the same manager that are playing well, but he's not. I'd say, you've not. But I think I saw the other day, he's had something like 13 appearances and like 3 starts, and fans are going, "Oh, he's crap. Get rid of it." It's like, whoa.
Do you know what they don't do, lads? And maybe I'm being an old fart. Maybe I'm being an old softy or whatever.
Probably, but say it anyway.
I'm just being empathetic. It's this case of with us, take Danilo. Right now, Danilo's a young boy. Okay, he's done a lot of good things for Palmeiras. He's won a Copa Libertadores. He's won a Brazilian Serie A or whatever the league is over there.
Yeah.
He's a boy. He's arrived in Nottingham, of all places, from Brazil. He's got to get used to a new climate. He's got to get used to a new way of life. I believe he came from a very poor background in a favela in Sao Paulo. Now he's in Nottingham. Now he's in a different country. And Steve Cooper, I know for a fact, because obviously he's not only got Danilo, he's got Scarpa, he's got Felipe, and he's had Renan Lodi. Steve Cooper, the man that he is, has been taking Portuguese lessons so that he can communicate with these guys better. And where they've got lucky, Forest, Gustavo Scarpa, who's extremely educated, extremely literate, speaks brilliant English, and he's acted as an interpreter, but he's had to work really hard to help Felipe, Danilo, and Renan Lodi adapt to life in this country. And where I get really irritated is that it's about walking a mile in another man's shoes. It's about treating people as you'd like to be treated yourself. If I'm in a foreign country, I'm hoping that people there help me to, assimilate and be part of it and part of that culture. And people say, he's getting paid loads and loads of money, he should be brilliant straight away. And I'm like thinking, that's nonsense. You know what I'm saying? And
all
it's
sense has been lost, Dave. All sense has been lost. We forget that some of these people, what am I saying? We forget that all of these people are human beings, right? Now, listen, I'm not as lenient of players coming from the Premier League to the Premier League when they've got experience. I'm not as lenient on that because I think, you've got the experience. There's none of this new country, right? But I think when players come from another country into a new league, it's okay if you're joining Man City and you're hitting the ground running, because the team's hitting the ground running. But if anyone truly can't give any of those Chelsea signings any time, I mean, as I said, every time I watch Chelsea, and bearing in mind my brother-in-law is Chelsea, right? Which means my father-in-law is Chelsea as well, right? He's literally every time I'm watching a game with them, they sit down and go, God, he's made 7 changes. We've gone from a back 3 to a back 4 to a back 5 to 3 up front. No one's up front, false 9s. There's no cohesion, consistency. And then fans go, look at Mudryk, look at Madueke, it's like, well, hang on. This is his first game for 3 weeks. And last time he was playing with 2 different players up front. Poch does not like big squads. He will have an 11 that is. And when I was doing my coaching badges many moons ago, a coach that did my coaching badges was a guy called Nicky Milo, right? And he was a coach for years at Millwall. Really good guy, Nicky. Always beautifully tanned. Good guy, Nicky. And he always used to say, any manager of any team, Sunday League, under 8s, Premier League, whatever. He said, if the manager writes down the 11 that he started the season with, that he believed was his best 11, puts it in a drawer. Throughout the season, you'll try different things and that. Primarily, you'll realise that the team that ends up working out will primarily be most of what was on that piece of paper, right? He said, if you keep changing it, your right back and your right winger, if you change them every week, how you get in a partnership? Same on the left, same with the 2 centre-backs. Now we've gone from 2 centre-backs to 3 this week. That's completely different as well. 2 centre-mids to 3 centre-mids, that's completely different. We've got Aubameyang up front for 1 game. We've got a striker. For the next 10, we've got Havertz, no striker. It's madness that people can't understand that takes time. And listen, this isn't about Chelsea. This is about all football clubs. This is
I've been there,
Savva.
Savva, I've been there. I ran a team for 17 years, and we were champions a couple of years. We won cups and stuff. I had some great lads play for me, and more often than not, I was lucky enough, and it's the eternal quest of any coach. You know this, Sav. Albert will know it as well. It's the eternal quest of, does he know his best side? And again, coming back to Forest, because I think for the first time in a long time, Forest feel relevant in the Premier League. It's taken us about 8 or 9 months to feel relevant and to be part of these conversations. We, as you say, Savva, we sort of, maybe through stumbling and maybe through the injury list, sort of reducing, Steve and us, we kind of like, from Liverpool onwards, where we lost 3-2, but we went down fighting, there was a sense that, we finally got our identity. And Chelsea are going to need to do this. I think the pieces of the Chelsea jigsaw are by and large there. Add some stuff to it. Poch will fit it together. And I think Chelsea will be really interesting next year. Champions League, I'm not quite sure, but they'll be certainly, looking, maybe they'll be a lot higher than they finished this season. But it does take time, and too many people think it should be happening. I want what I want right now, and
it's immediate. Like you think, I mean, if you can pick any club, like for example, Tottenham are about to get a new manager. Well, I say about to. Tottenham need a new manager and a director of football. right? They've also got about 10 players coming back from loan, right? So you can pretty much say most of that is deadwood. We've got a lot of deadwood in our first 25, our squad that's here at the moment as well. So you think you've got a manager joining, and the season starts in like 10 weeks, right? Is it 9 or 10 weeks? Right.
Yeah.
So you've got, picture this, a manager and director of football who, by the way, haven't joined yet. So let's say there's another week or two before they join. They've now got 8 weeks to clear out deadwood, bring in new players, right? Implement their tactics, their philosophy, etc., whilst navigating 4, 5, 6 friendlies in whichever country is paying them for marketing rights or whatever. Then come the first 10 games of the season, people will be going, oh my God, what have they done all summer? They're not brilliant. It's like what? Now take the best example ever is Pep Guardiola in year 1. Everybody said his football will never work here. Yeah. And then when they finished third in his first season, everyone went, see, his style of football don't work. Told you it doesn't work over here. And Pep Guardiola turned around at the end of that season and said, I've had a year to settle now. My players know what to expect. Watch us next season. Right? Because managers need time to implement things. Spurs fans want it now. Fans want, like, you could put Pep Guardiola at Spurs right now. He would still have all the work to do that someone who isn't Guardiola is going to have to do. And yet the new manager will be judged within 10 games. 3 wins.
Agreed.
If we lose 3 or 4 of that first 10, get them out. They're terrible. They're dreadful. This new philosophy doesn't work. Honestly, football's changed so much, guys, for me. Football fans.
And the big thing, and you're right, and the big factor for that is the social media element. And I always say this in particular in particular with Twitter, there's no context. There isn't. I've seen it amongst our own Arsenal fans in terms of a lot of the guys that are featured like mainly on mainly most of the kind of the media outlets, and the amount of times I know them quite well. I get on quite well with a couple of them. Look, I say to them,
I get on with everybody, Albert. I know you're a gentleman.
I'll say to them, I know it's hard. And it's hard not to bite back. But I say to sometimes just don't do it, man. Like, it's not worth it because you're just not gonna get that level of content.
Do you want to know?
Do
you want to know, Albert? The best thing, right? The best thing about being a YouTuber is you know who in your comments is going to give you what you need, right?
Yeah.
You know who's gonna say
Why don't
something.
Do it.
Right. Here we go. Like, football is a results business. Yeah, yes, it is. But Minerals, Minerals is an Arsenal fan. Let me tell you something, Minerals, right? Football is a results business. But let me give you a scenario. New manager comes into club, doesn't do very well in the first 10 to 15, 20 games, is sacked because he hasn't had enough time to implement what he wants and the players are still getting used to what he wants. You sack that manager. Now you bring in a new manager after 20 games, comes in, has the January transfer window. That manager now has 18 to 20 games to implement his philosophy that might be completely different to the philosophy before. Now those players are absolutely confused and you've got a shit show of a season like you've just seen from Spurs and Chelsea, right? Or, I don't know, a crazy idea. Let it ride out. Give the manager the year. And if going towards the back end of the season, you forget results for a moment, if you can't see that the philosophy is coming out, if you can't see that you're starting to identify with what the manager's been doing all year, cool, get rid of the manager. But this is the problem, Minerals. If every single owner had this philosophy as it's a results business, every manager's going to be sacked every year. It's
after one loss.
It's
crazy.
It
was a good example. Top of my head, actually not top of my head. I thought about this when the comment come up. Ask Frank de Boer at Crystal Palace.
Yeah.
4 games.
Yeah.
4 games.
Nathan Jones.
Yeah. Not 3 months, 4 games.
Yeah.
And he was gone.
Yeah.
Football's mad. I get
And you're right,
I get
lads.
it. It is the results business. It is. But
but there's a route to get
example.
it.
Yeah.
There's a methodology and a route that you have to travel to get to those results. It's like saying, you've got a front of a house that looks fantastic, but if you've got no substance behind it, it's just an edifice that falls over. Yeah. And it's interesting what you say, Albert, and you're dead right, mate, about social media and everybody's knee jerk, and it's either complete love or complete hate, and life isn't like that. Life
There's no middle ground, is there?
No middle ground. And I go back, what I'm laughing about is like, we're talking about managers like lasting, Steve Cooper is the first Forest manager to do an entire season since the year dot. You go back to the 60s and the 70s, and you can reel off Shankly at Liverpool, you could reel off Bill Nick at Tottenham, you could reel off Don Revie at Leeds, you could reel off, I don't know, Bob Stokoe at Sunderland, and managers, Matt Busby at United, they were synonymous with clubs, and you never knew of a managerial sacking. Now it's like, I do think where we've gone wrong in a way is that it's almost like owners now are too prevalent. They're too front and center. The beauty of the team. I go back to when and talk about Leicester, and they've had their problems. But if you go back to 2016, the King Power people let Ranieri get on with it and didn't stick their nose in. And it's like we've talked too much about Bowley. We're talking too much about Levy. We're actually talking far too much about Mr. Marinakis. We're talking far too much about owners, people who move money around and business. And I want football people to be like, the best owners are the ones that are not sticking their fingers in. And I think the Villa owners seem to have a really good way. I don't know who owns Villa. I don't know who runs it. I believe there's two guys run it, but they let Unai Emery get on with his job. Marinakis generally lets Cooper get on with his job, but he does have his say. And I just wish these owners would let the football people do that. And they can attend to running the business.
The Cronkies definitely do that, man. Don't worry about that.
Do you know, guys? Do you know, guys, that for the last 5 years, not one Spurs manager has started a season and finished it?
Oh wow.
Bonkers, mate.
Right.
There's got to be some continuity at some point.
And then when people want to say, look at the state of our squad, look at, as I've said, right, this director of football, this manager, bring them in, let them implement their philosophy, give them some years. It cannot be that if we're 10th next season that everyone throws their toys. And listen, if we're about to get relegated, cool. But if we're 10th in the league, 9th in the league, 11th in the league, but we can see some green shoots of what they're trying to implement. But nowadays, everyone is just like, when I'm talking about footballers now, no one ever says, oh, he's a good player, him. Everything is, oh my God, he's amazing, or he is shit. And it's
overrated.
What happened to all the old pros back in the day where everyone was just a solid pro? Like if I look at the Spurs team that won the FA Cup, Dave, that you were talking about. Solid
Sedgley.
pros, like
Steve Sedgley.
Pat Van Den Hal, Dean Austin, Paul Stewart,
Paul Allen,
David Howes. None of them were, oh my God, these are brilliant players. But
Gary Mabbott, absolutely
proper men, proper footballers that did their job. And then you had the stardust that was Paul Gascoigne, Gary Lineker, Paul Walsh.
Paul Walshy,
Paul Walsh, great player.
Good player.
Now everyone's either shit or brilliant.
And if those people saying that, right, how would they see? Like me, when I see a Forest player on the field, I mean, a few weeks ago, Aston Villa, when we got beat 2-0 and we were really poor, I heard people abusing Brendan Johnson. Right, there was some abuse of Brendan Johnson, and I'm looking at it thinking that's essentially a boy of 21, 22 who you're sat in the stand, mate, and you're abusing a guy who's playing in the Premier League, has been to a World Cup, and he's younger than you, and you're abusing him. I would have gone up. I'd have liked to got Brendan on one side and got this Burke and said, right, swap shirts. Right, you go on the field, Brendan, you come stand with me, and what we'll do, we will destroy you and your family from this position. We'll abuse you to the point where you are really unhappy. And it's like when you get these. It's like, I always think of the Matthew Simmons with Eric Cantona. He came down the stairs at Palace and he was a really big guy. And then Cantona belted him and he looked like a little boy who'd wet his pants all of a sudden. And like, you know, the guy who ran on the field last year at Forest Leicester in the FA Cup when he had a swing at Joe Worrell and Keenan Davies, as soon as the stewards got to him, his whole life unravelled. And it's like that person making that judgment of either brilliant or shit. How would you like that? And people don't do that. And it really annoys me. And it doesn't, I tell you what it doesn't do. It doesn't sell football as a fantastic game or a fantastic concept to people who don't like it. It makes people who look in on football and think, I don't want to have anything to do with that, get even further away from it. And it's just, everything is so tribal. Everything is so knee-jerk. Everything, you know, it's like, but I found, you know, I'm older. So at my age, if I come out with, oh, he's a load of shit, he's brilliant, it's just not right for a guy my age.
It's not. No, you're right. You're right. I mean, just a couple of comments I want to bring up, and then we'll go for another 5 minutes. ER said, I don't understand what Spurs fans want. When I was young, they were nearly relegated. What do they want to achieve? Well, I can tell you this, ER. I'm not young. I'm 40 years of age. I've seen Spurs nearly relegated once in that time. And if you don't understand what Spurs fans want, I don't think you understand what on earth has gone on at our club. We pay the most expensive ticket prices in world football to watch what we watch. We've won 1 trophy in 23 years as opposed to 6 trophies for the 23 years previous to that. I could go on and on and on, but basically, my friend, what Spurs fans want is the football club to be run like a football club, not a sports entertainment centre. You know, last year they turned our stadium. Obviously, Beyonce was there. They turned the club shop into a Beyonce. It's mad. So, and the last comment. Sorry, this guy is really winding me up again, Robin. When fans like you say things like this, you're passing it off as fact, and you don't know that. When you say he's been given a 2-year contract, the first to settle in, second to deliver, he will fail to deliver the title or Champions League. How do you know that is the conversation he's had with Bowley? You don't know that. For all you know, they might have both said, look, for all you know, Poch might have said, listen, I've seen how you've acted. I want to see how it goes. He might have said, okay, well, look, you've been out of work for a while. Let's see how it goes. But you don't know this. You can't know this. It's mental.
Do you know what, Sav? We're all of us 3 guys and all the people watching and the millions out there. We're all so heavily emotionally invested in our clubs, right? And I'm, you know, Forest is so important to me in my life. You know, it's a fantastic outlet for me from family responsibilities and all this kind of stuff, right? And I love my club dearly, and I'm really interested in other clubs. But I don't ever think I'm just a spectator. I just look on. I cannot control Nottingham Forest. I can shout. I can go wacka wacka hey hey for 90 minutes at Crystal Palace. I can't do much more than that. And it's a lot of people often think that they've got, oh, I know a bloke inside the club and he tells me and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, do me a favour. Because inside a football club is an inner sanctum to which we are not party. So if somebody says to me, what conversations is Mr. Marinakis having with Ross Wilson, our director of football, and Steve Cooper, I would be insulting to say, oh, I know what they're talking about. I don't know at all. And like Savva doesn't know you don't know what's going on at Chelsea, mate. So, you know, wait and see the beauty of it is, it seems like people can't handle the uncertainty of knowing what's coming next. And that's life. Tomorrow's Wednesday. It might be the greatest day of my life. It might be the worst. I do not know.
It's just, look, for me, it's just mad. And thanks for Phil P. All right, if I said Dean Austin, I actually meant to say Justin Edinburgh. But I mean, if we're going to be pedantic about this, you knew Come on. Jesus Christ. I do give up.
When I watch that game, I'm like, come on, man. I'm an Arsenal fan. Oh God.
Look, we will wrap up there. Before we do, big up to Aaron, long time no speak, mate. I hope you're well. Who has said, congrats, Forest. Now give me a Cloughie impression, please. And I don't think he's talking to me.
No,
not me.
I think, Dom, it was a fraction between you taking the England job or having another crack at the European Cup. That's exactly right, Brian. That's what I would have done. Good lad.
Well done, Dave. Well done.
Love it.
I'll give him another one. There was when we won the league in 1978, well, just halfway through that season, Forest went to Old Trafford and beat United 4-0 at Old Trafford, and everybody had kind of disregarded Forest until that point. And Cloughie got interviewed by John Motson after the game, and Cloughie went, he was still there in his big coat and everything, and it was a cold December day in Manchester, and he said, we don't have trouble with referees, we try to entertain, and you never know, John, you and your profession might just recognise that we are a good side. And we ended up being champions that year. And, you know, and I get wistful about the old boy. What I would say is the old boy will be looking down on Nottingham Forest right now and thinking that we have got the right man for the job, and he would be really proud of our club. I know it's Steve Cooper said, look, 16th isn't an achievement. But again, the context, and we keep coming back to this word, gents. The context is that we were bottom of the championship 20 odd months ago. And we talk about, and I'm going to big up my team. I haven't, you know, and it sounds like I've done it a lot, and I apologise because there's lots of other fans.
Do it, mate. Do it.
But the way I look at it is, no club in this country, in terms of the pyramid, has travelled so far in so little time as Nottingham Forest. Honestly, maybe Luton Town are the only team that you could claim to have been on. You know, Luton have come from non-league to the Premier League, and let's give a load of credit to Luton Town's a phenomenal story, as would Coventry City have been. You know what I mean? And I like the comment about Justin Edinburgh as well.
Yeah,
he was a terrific player.
He
was a terrific player.
And
really sad.
And
so fair play, Phil P.
Justin Edinburgh is the most decorated Spurs player in the last 33 years.
Which tells you a lot.
With two, he was in the FA Cup winning team in 91 and the League Cup winning team in 99.
Yep.
And that leads me to this. This is a great post. This is a great post. And some bloke, I'm guessing from this that you are not 25, 30 or under. I don't think you're 30 or under for this comment. I'm just going to guess your age because
it's probably my era.
but it's true, because where lots of football fans constantly talk about top four, right?
Yeah, you're right.
This wasn't a thing back in the day. And he's made a great point. He'd rather have yo-yo league positions with trophies. Now, he said here, we had 3 trophies in the 80s, 3 in the 70s, 5 in the 60s, add the 2 in the 90s, and we've had one. We've had 1 in the noughties. And we're now in the 23rd year of the noughties, if that's what it's called.
Yeah.
Right? And yet people will go, look where we've come league position. I don't care. I don't care, because now look where we are. We're 8th. Yeah. That league position can go up and down depending on your best goal scorer getting injured. I remember back in the day when Spurs we were decent. We were a decent team, nothing amazing. And I remember, who remembers this in the chat? And if someone can tell me the actual year, I'll be well impressed, because I can't remember it. I can't remember if it was 93, 90. I can't remember exactly, but Sheringham got like a 6-month injury for during the season. I can't remember which season it was. And we had all these people who seemed to take a turn in going up front because there was no strikers at the club, and we were poor. But that can happen, right? If Kane got injured now, we wouldn't be 8th, we'd be 15th, 16th. So for me, top 4 every year, this great vanity project. When people say, oh, Poch kept getting you top 4, cool. But would I swap top 4 for a couple of FA Cups? I would now, because what did those top 4s, 3rd and 2nd, actually get me from a memory perspective? What has it got me?
Do you know, that's a great point, Sav. And again, what I think about is like, I I look at the promotion from the Championship last year, and poor old Fulham and Bournemouth, what they achieved was fantastic, but they kind of didn't have the day we had at Wembley. You know, and I know it's only the playoffs, but they're not. Joe Worrell and Lewis Grabban were stood up on the balcony at Wembley holding a trophy, a bit like, you know, Barry Bannon was holding a trophy on Sunday, and the lads at Carlisle were holding a trophy on
Dave,
on
good
Saturday.
shout, by the way. Great games, by the way. I watched all of them.
Yeah, and obviously, I mean, how did Sonny Bradley feel holding a trophy? And it's the playoffs, but it's a trophy, and it's a tangible recognition of achievement, and you know, and I go back to Lawless, and Lawless has been banging on about it, and he's had a lot of stick. He's had some stick from me, but you know, Lawless. He might next week if they beat Fiorentina. I know he'll bang on about it, but that's I love him. You can't ignore him. He will feel fantastic having that bauble, even though I can't see, it's the Conservative Party conference or whatever it is, but he'll have a bauble. And I'd like to think, I said on Pochettino's show the other week, you know, if Forest stay up, maybe we can incrementally progress to the point where maybe in 3 or 4 years' time, we might be like Aston Villa or Brighton or Brentford, and Nottingham Forest, ludicrously, might end up in the Europa Conference League. And then I'll be thinking, Lawless will be going, are you happy about that, Dave? And I'm going to have to say to him, yes, I am. You know, so I think you're right. I tell you what, if Tottenham were in this FA Cup final on Saturday, Sav, against Manchester City, they'd be underdogs for sure. But what a great occasion for Tottenham Hotspur fans to look forward to, mate.
Yeah.
I think as well, some of the younger Spurs fans, they've never experienced winning at a cup final. Right, so I was at the 91. I was at the 91 cup final.
Me too.
I was at the 99 cup final, and I was at the 2008 cup final, and winning the trophy and that. But you don't forget anything about that day. You don't forget the party afterwards. Everyone knows exactly where they were.
And you make a great point about youngsters, Savva.
Yeah, you
and
do.
I look at our club, right? There were so many fabulous youngsters, like little girls, little boys, and teenagers, and what have you, younger lads in their early 20s who followed Nottingham Forest since the day they were born, and until May the 29th last year, they were the ones on the playground at school or in their college classes or whatever, who, when everybody else is talking about my team won this, my team won that, the Forest kids had to sit there and they weren't in the conversation. Now they can say, we won a playoff final. I went to Wembley. We beat Arsenal at the City Ground to secure survival in the Premiership. And they've now got memories that they can lean on. I was lucky. I got a League Championship, 4 League Cups, 2 European Cups, a Simod Cup, whatever it was called, the Zenith Data or whatever it was called. And they are great memories for me. And I used to look at the kids who support Forest, and they haven't done a trophy. The kids who support Tottenham are wearing their Harry Kane shirts. Wouldn't it be lovely for them to say, "Oh, we won the FA Cup"? The Leicester kids would have loved winning the FA. The Leicester kids would have loved winning the FA Cup. Arsenal, when Arsenal beat Chelsea, was it a couple of years ago? And Aubameyang had that brilliant. The Arsenal kids would have loved winning the FA Cup. You know what I'm saying? So you're right what you say, Sam.
Just quickly, so Terence Sampson was right with Campbell. He's corrected himself to say it was the 93-94 season. I remember Sheringham got a really bad injury, and like Sol Campbell was going up front at the time. I mean, you know, we're going back some time. Sorry, Judas was going up front at the time. Just quickly as well.
Albert doesn't think that.
Robin has said October 93 Sheringham injury. Who scored that day, Savva? If you're talking about the 91 Cup final, it was Paul Stewart with an equaliser after a Stuart Pearce free kick, and then Des Walker with an own goal.
Yeah.
He's in the game.
You'll never beat Des Walker.
Oh, what a player Des was.
Until he went to Italy.
He was never the same after Overmars did him at Wembley in that 2-2 draw. And I'll tell you what, but when Des came into the side, I remember he scored 1 goal in his career, and it was against Luton at the City Ground, and it was a dreadful game. Luton had led for about 80-odd minutes, and Desmond went on this run and he smashed it through the net. And what happened against Arsenal last week was, it was almost like recreating what happened when we were there the day Des Walker scored. Some quite sort of cuddly lady came from nowhere to hug me. I don't know who she was. It was like it was near enough to an assault, but I was quite enjoying it. You know what I mean? And Des Walker was fantastic, but that cup final, what you have to remember is Gary Lineker had a penalty saved by Norm Crossley.
Second penalty save ever in a cup final at that time.
The thing is, obviously Spurs' game plan completely changed, right? I mean, let's emphasize for the younger fans just how much this meant. So for anyone who doesn't know, I'm sure they do. If you don't know this, then you've got to get to know your Spurs history. 91 FA Cup final. Gazza's on fire, he's on form. He's dragged us to the final, and in the first the first 10 minutes, I think it was the first.
Well, what he did, he gave Gary Parker in the solar plexus, and he should have been sent off. Roger Milford let him get away with it, and then he whacked Gary Charles, went on a run, and he whacked Gary Charles and injured himself. And then I'll tell you what I believe, Savva. Tottenham. I think that day Gascoigne was so hyped. If he'd have stayed on the field, Forest would have won. But as soon as he went off, they put Naeem on to replace him. And I remember Naeem, Vinny Samways, David Owls, Paul Stewart, and Paul Allen, and Lineker on his own up front. I thought the Tottenham midfield that day, Sav, it's like they almost looked around at each other and thought, oh, thank goodness, now we can have a kick of the ball. Gascoigne wanted to do everything. Bless him.
He did, but I mean, for the younger fans, Paul Gascoigne was, put it this way, for me, if Paul Gascoigne was if Paul Gascoigne was a Premiership player now, he would be worth 150, 175 million. He was phenomenal.
Great player.
That game was because I've actually had Paul Stewart on the show.
Good player. Good lad as well.
Good player. Told some wonderful stories about Gazza at the training ground. The things he said about what Gazza did at the training ground, man. Like you wouldn't get away with it now because it would be all over social media and people would mistake banter for for
Savva, the Ginola wig at training when he ran out with the wig on.
That was hilarious. Was it Everton? That was hilarious.
Brilliant. Was it Everton? It was brilliant.
It was Everton, But Savva, I have to give a shout out to one of your players. I've always said it, even as an Arsenal fan. One player, ex-Tottenham, for me, was the boss, mate, Chris Waddle.
Great player.
Jesus Christ, man. You know what? In France, he's worshipped when he's covering for the BBC at the Euros in 06. What a player! What a player!
Do you know what the funny thing is like, this is why whenever. Maybe I'm at a disadvantage as a YouTuber being this age, right? Because a lot of the viewers will be younger. And what I mean by that is when people say things to me like, oh my God, Savva, you don't think Son is world class. I always say things like, well, I saw Waddle and Ginola. I saw these players that make Heung-min Son look like a championship footballer. And that's probably a bit harsh, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I saw these players that were technically superior in every way. And I'm not picking on Son. We could say that about, it's like the same thing with the Romero conversation at the moment. Everyone loves Romero. And I'm like, listen, I've seen Mabbutt. I've seen Richard Goff. I've seen Alderweireld and King.
Graham Roberts.
Sol Campbell, right? I've seen these centre-halves who were there. These kids are going, world class. Really?
Imagine if they saw Phil Beale or Mike England or Dave Mackay or people like that. You know what I mean? They were. That's a great. I mean, you look back in those days, and I remember one of the greatest Tottenham players when I was a kid was Alan Gilzean. What a player Alan Gilzean was. Jimmy Neighbour was a good player. Martin Peters was a great player. Chivers,
Jimmy Neighbour. I did a coaching course with Jimmy Neighbour.
Yeah, good player.
I did a coaching course. Winger, right? He was a
he was.
And I tell you who I first worked for when I worked for Charlton Athletic. I'm not sure. It might be a bit before. He was a bit before our time, Albert. But Dave, sorry, I think you might remember them. I worked for a guy called Jason Morgan, who was son of one of the Morgan twins who played either wing for QPR.
All right.
Do you remember the Morgan twins? They played.
Yeah. The only Morgan I remember, there was a really good winger who played for Manchester United called Willie Morgan. I remember him. I don't remember the Morgan.
I heard that name.
Willie Morgan he was kind of like a proto George Best. He was long hair. He had his hands inside his sleeves. He was a good player, Willie Morgan, actually. But I mean, talking about Tottenham, and you were talking about relegation. I remember Tottenham being relegated in the era of like Chris Jones was up front and Stevie Perryman, and they went down they went down to the second division. And there was a very in those days with Match of the Day. It was like you get Oh, I remember them now. Yeah, I remember them now, mate. Definitely, yeah.
Yeah, so I worked
Tottenham
for their son.
Tottenham beating. I think it was Bristol Rovers 9-0 at White Hart Lane on a Match of the Day. I think Colin Lee scored 5 or something. Hoddle was playing, and you know, and
Glenn Hoddle as well, man.
I think for me, I do find it harder. Like people are always asking me, like, why am I so harsh? When people say who's world class and who's not, I don't put many in the world class bracket. No, and people just go, "You're harsh." And I'm like, "Well, I'm judging them by what I've seen." And you know, for example, if I'm going to use the Son Ginola bracket, what the younger fans do now is they say things like, "Look at the number of goals Son has scored compared to Ginola," and I'm like, "Well, yeah, because David Ginola played on the left wing in a 4-4-2, and wingers." In a 4-4-2 weren't scoring 15, 20 goals. They were wingers. They were wide men, right? Yeah. But if you watched everything about I love him. If you watched everything about the ball at that man's feet compared to the ball at Sonny's feet, just the way he receives the ball, controls it. What he was brilliant at Ginola more than anything. And my uncle, who I always went to Spurs with, always said this to me. He said, watch Ginola. He said, his first touch always takes him into position for what he wants his next move to be. He said, you watch the other players, they'll kill the ball stone dead, but now they've got to reorganize their feet. He said, you watch Ginola, his body's always open. He'll kill the ball at the same time as putting it to where he wants the next pass to go. Yeah. And that's always stuck with me when watching footballers now. What's your body shape like? Are you ready to play that pass? And that's why when, like, last night I got loads of stick because I called Oliver Skip crap. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, anyway, guys, I do.
I know what you mean. Hey, on the subject of Ginola, mate, ask the ladies what they thought of Ginola. And they would absolutely love him. You know?
What do you mean?
And I go back.
It's
a bit like me having my sort of man crush on Felipe at the moment, you know. But you're right what you say. Ginola was a fan. I mean, you go back even further into the 70s. We had a little fat left winger who knew how to get himself sorted. John Robertson, the great John Robertson. Yes. You know? And Arsenal had. I go back. Charlie George, remember Charlie George? What a player!
Yeah, I would have loved to have seen Liam Brady play. I heard so much about it.
Ray Kennedy was a great player. You know, Ray Kennedy. George Graham was a good player.
Good old, gorgeous George.
George. And Brady,
good manager as well, George.
Yeah, ex-Millwall as well. Ex-Millwall as well. Oh,
good manager.
Scottishman in South East London, man. Flipping hell.
I do feel like I don't know if this is a sign of me getting old or what, but I do feel that I think the fitness and speed and everything is great, but for me, guys, the technical ability of footballers in volume compared to when I was growing up, compared to the 90s, the 80s, I don't think it's there.
No, and look at the Italian league, Savva. In the 90s, wow.
Oh, yeah. Do you know what?
Every game on a Sunday when they had, you remember it was Go Lazio, right? Every game on a Sunday, it didn't matter who was playing. There was superstars all over the pitch, from Parma to Juve to Fiorentina to Sampdoria. Yeah. There were class players everywhere that make footballers now look.
Yeah, you would discover one every Sunday, and I tell you what I think has happened with football, and actually you look at rugby union is another game where it applies. With greater athleticism, you've lost subtlety. I mean, I agree. If you look back at the British Lions of the 1970s, you had Barry John was one of the greatest number 10s the game's ever seen. If Barry was a wee will-o'-the-wisp, if he played now, he'd get battered every week. And it's not the same. And with football, you know, our greatest ever player, John Robertson, was a little fat lad who smoked a fag and he had a pint. But Cloughie knew that. Cloughie used to say to him, give him a ball and a yard of grass, and he was an artist, right? Now, if Robbo played now, the likes of your Reece Jameses or whoever else he's playing, or, you know, Aspilicuetas, these kind of like, I mean, take Serge Aurier at Forest. He took his shirt off when we beat Arsenal last week, and it's like, it was a bodybuilding competition. And I think it's like we've got increased athleticism. So the
did you take yours off and compete?
God, no. God, they would have been offering me 10 pence for a cup of tea. They'd have thought I was like homeless or something. You know, somebody said, big issue, Dave, you know. And I just think, and the other thing as well is, with the views that are made on football these days, it's more of a data-driven age. And it goes back to everybody knows, everybody can like bring up their phone and bring up a stat. Yeah. So when you talk about, and you talk brilliantly about Ginola, Sav, it was a feeling, it was a sensation, it was a chemical reaction to what you saw. It wasn't XG or the number of goal assists and all this bullshit.
But that made it better for me, Dave, because no one was talking about XG, this, that, the other,
more
stats,
romantic.
This, that, the other. You'd go to the ground, like when I was going to the ground in the Ginola years, Spurs weren't great. You know, we were, I'll be honest, we were a very average team, but we had Sol Campbell at centre half. Just a sorry Spurs fan, we had Sol Campbell at centre half, and we had Ginola on the left wing. And the only time you'd get excited is as soon as that ball went out the left, you felt this kind of energy from all of the stands. Everyone was like, what's he going to do? I can't, at Spurs, I don't have that with anyone. I had it with, I mean, I saw Waddle for bits because I was just sort of coming into that age. I saw Waddle for bits. I saw maybe a year I saw of Hoddle. But the Ginolas, the Bales, you know, these are the people who do things that you go, that's
Bale
why
in Milan.
That's why I paid to watch. And at the moment, yes, it's more. For example, what you said there about Johnny Robertson. Yeah, in this day and age, he gets smoked. But my point is always, if he was in this day and age, he would also be fit. Yeah. And you know what I mean? So, George Best, if George Best hadn't been an alcoholic and George Best had been playing in this era, George Best would be the best player in the Premier League by a country mile. Yeah. Right? But
Bobby Moore, Bobby Charlton, all those guys. Yeah. Dave Mackay. With Tottenham Hotspur, my touchstone with Tottenham Hotspur, because I'm at that age and I was brought up as a kid knowing about him, Dave Mackay. Yeah, I don't remember Danny Blanchflower, he's before me, but Dave Mackay to me is the embodiment of what I think any Tottenham Hotspur should go and read up on Dave Mackay. You know, when Cloughie went and nicked him from Tottenham to go to Derby, Cloughie went there and knocked on his door and he charmed Mrs. Mackay, and Dave Mackay was going, I've got a contract with Tottenham Hotspur. Within 48 hours, he was a Derby County player. Within 2 years, Derby County were the champions of England because Cloughie got Dave Mackay from Tottenham, went downhill. Derby won the league. Derby got in Europe. Derby won 2 league titles in the 70s, and he came from signing Dave Mackay. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, but it's this idea of class is permanent, and it's this. I mean, with us at the moment, we've had very little to get excited about for 23 years. But I'm telling you now, when Morgan Gibbs-White gets the ball and he beats 6 Arsenal players, gets a shot off, and then chases Gabriel Jesus to win the ball off him and then give it the fist up to A-Block, that gets me out of my seat. Do you know what I mean? And that's not about data or bloody athleticism. That's about a romantic feeling of supporting your club and enjoying what a lad's doing. You know what I mean?
Do you know what? Listen, I do want to end the show. Just before I do, the White Rooster, I cannot agree with this statement more. I've said this for years. The standard of defending, when I hear things like, oh, could they do it in the Premier League and they'd get kicked? I think the defending in this league this league across the world has gone to pot. And I agree with you. The kids coming through, they don't want to be no-nonsense centre-backs anymore. They all want to be ball-playing centre-halves that can bring it out and play like Pep Guardiola's Man City.
And the goalkeepers have to do it now as well, so.
Yeah,
agreed. And look, the last thing I'd say is when I was coaching for Charlton, there was a coach there called Wolfie, and he was brilliant. You know what? The kids loved him, the mums loved him. He was just he was one of those guys. Everyone loved him. But when he was doing a session, he'd always say, when it got to the they'd be there for like an hour and a half, and the first 45 minutes was always some drills and what he was good at. He always made sure that there wasn't one of these drills where 15 kids were standing about while 2 kids did something. He always made sure everyone's involved, right? Which is the best way to coach. But he always, in that bit, he'd always set up a drill where every kid had to show a skill, right? And he'd always say, just try anything. Don't worry about getting on. Just keep trying it. Keep trying it. And then when they did the 45-minute game at the end, he'd always say to the kids, who can show me what they've just been doing? Who can put that into practice? And it was great seeing these kids not worrying about losing the ball, not worrying about shape, not worrying. They were young kids. He was trying to hone their ability with a football. And unfortunately now, I see so many players that come through the ranks. They make Premier League players, and I'm like, why have you made it as a player? You don't really do anything. You're just super fit. Like, you don't really. Anyway, I'm waffling now. Guys, it's been absolutely brilliant. I've really enjoyed it. Always feels like we're just in a living room having a chat. So
it's brilliant.
It's good times.
Enjoyed it,
Dave, thanks so much.
Always a pleasure, Sav. Always, mate.
Listen, absolutely. And Albert, always a pleasure. Please go over and subscribe to Albert JTV. He's one of the good Arsenal ones.
He's a gem. Subscribe to this guy in your millions. Let's get him world fame now.
He's a legend. So subscribe.
More Albert. We want more Albert. Let's save more Albert. That's what we want.
Fantastic.
Subscribe to Albert. Do me a favor, people. Before you leave, we are 12 likes away from the 100. Please smash the likes. Please, as always, tomorrow I've got my morning rant at 10 a.m. And then we've got, you need it as a Spurs fan, by the way, your morning rant show at 10 a.m. And then at 4 p.m. we'll be doing another transfer update for whatever has happened in the world of transfers tomorrow. And we've got the 24-hour live. You can tell I'm tired. I'm forgetting everything I'm thinking. We've got the 24-hour live charity stream for the British Heart Foundation. So, and I can assure you, I can assure you that all the money does go to a Just Giving page that goes directly to the British Heart Foundation. Everybody, much love. As always, I will leave you with a video of a team winning a tournament. Here it is.
And here comes Hurst. He's got some people are on the pitch. They think it's all over.